Deep beneath the ocean's surface, a hidden world harbors a clandestine operation involving thousands of illegal drug submarines. Each of these submersibles is designed to transport more than 3 tons of drugs, with a combined street value amounting to millions on the black market. These submersibles are exceptionally well built, making them exceedingly challenging to detect. But what happens when the United States Coast Guard crosses paths with these audacious criminals? The scale of this illicit underwater operation is expanding day by day. So how are these criminals apprehended, and what do they find inside these shadowy submarines? It should come as no surprise that numerous instances exist wherein the US Coast Guard has successfully intercepted large-scale drug trafficking operations. Some of these cases are quite recent, like the September 2019 event that involved a submarine transporting illicit substances. This operation underscored the crucial role played by the US Coast Guard. In an impressive display of their capabilities, the US Coast Guard managed to intercept and apprehend a submarine that was carrying a staggering 12,000 pounds of illicit drugs. This operation was a result of a collaborative effort between the US Coast Guard, the US Navy, and international partners. The interception took place in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, a known hotspot for drug trafficking activities. Equipped with advanced surveillance and detection systems, the Coast Guard cutter Monroe detected a self-propelled mini-submersible vessel navigating suspiciously in open waters. The Monroe's crew, assisted by a Coast Guard helicopter and a U.S. Navy aircraft, initiated a high-speed pursuit of the SPSS. Despite the evasive maneuvers employed by the smugglers, the Coast Guard's relentless pursuit ultimately led to the successful interdiction of the vessel. Upon boarding the submarine, Coast Guard personnel made an astonishing discovery: a cargo hold filled with 12,000 pounds of cocaine, with an estimated street value of $165 million. The seizure dealt with significant blow to drug trafficking organizations and disrupted their operations. Legal proceedings were intended and also initiated against the 4 individuals who were apprehended in connection with this operation. This event is just one of several occasions where the US Coast Guard has been lauded for its accomplishments. For instance, on June 18, 2019, the US Coast Guard executed a bold operation in the Eastern Pacific, successfully seizing another narco submarine laden with a whopping 17,000 pounds of cocaine. This entire operation was documented on video. The seized drugs were estimated to have a street value of $232 million. Remarkably, this operation was one of 14 instances of 3 months where law enforcement authorities intercepted drug smuggling vessels off the coasts of Mexico, Central America, and South America. During these operations, authorities successfully confiscated 39,000 pounds of cocaine and 933 pounds of marijuana, with an estimated combined street value of approximately $569 million. It's important to acknowledge that the individuals involved in these operations are often coerced by powerful drug cartels using a combination of threats, violence, and financial incentives to compel their participation in illicit activities. These operators of narco submarines frequently hail from vulnerable and marginalized communities where economic opportunities may be limited. In some cases, their families are held hostage or subjugated to harm if they refuse to cooperate. But how are these submarines tracked, spotted, and captured? The specifics regarding the detection methods employed by authorities are generally classified for security purposes. However, authorities do share occasional information on their detection methods with the public, striking a balance between maintained operational security and keeping the public informed about their efforts to combat drug trafficking. Before 2008, when a semi-submersible was intercepted at sea, the crew would often sink the vessel along its illicit cargo, leaving no evidence of drug trafficking. According to maritime law, crew members were typically rescued and released without facing criminal charges. To address this legal loophole, the U.S. introduced the Drug Trafficking Vessel Interdiction Act, making it a felony for individuals who knowingly or intentionally operate or board a self-propelled mini-submersible without nationality in international waters with the intent to evade detection. In the realm of maritime law enforcement, the sighting of narco submarines sets the stage for a high-stakes battle on the open seas. When the US Coast Guard spots a potential narco submarine, they dispatch fast response boats and aircraft to intercept it, utilizing technologies like infrared cameras and sonar to track the sub's underwater movement. The Coast Guard's goal is to stop the illegal cargo and apprehend those involved without using force if possible. Sometimes they wait for the sub to surface on its own so that the crew can be arrested and any contraband seized. Specialized boarding teams may also leap onto those elusive vessels during operations, engaging in fierce struggles with drug traffickers. Victory is achieved when the narco submarine is captured, its criminal crew apprehended, and a significant blow dealt to the dark forces profiting from drug trafficking. Once a narco submarine is captured by the United States, it is typically taken to a secure location for further processing and investigation. The specific location may vary, but it's often a designated port or naval base. When the vessel arrives at the secure location, it undergoes a thorough examination and search by law enforcement and naval personnel. This process aims to gather evidence, locate any hidden compartments or contraband, and identify those responsible for operating the vessel. Forensic experts may collect fingerprints, DNA samples, and other relevant evidence from the narco sub to support ongoing investigations and potential legal proceedings. Ultimately, the fate of the narco submarine may vary. It could be dismantled, destroyed, or persevered for training purposes or public display, depending on the specific circumstances and policies of the law enforcement agencies involved. So, why are narco submarines used for illicit operations? Who invented these sophisticated vessels? And what is the cost of their production? In the late 1980s, Colombian drug cartels faced increasing challenges in evading detection. This led to devise stealthier smuggling methods, ultimately giving rise to narco submarines. The dedicated men and women of the United States Coast Guard tirelessly work to combat the criminal use of narco submarines. As one of the U.S. military's smaller branches, the Coast Guard plays a vital role in protecting U.S. maritime safety and security. With a fleet that includes various vessels, aircraft, and helicopters, they conduct operations across both the Atlantic and Pacific areas. Their mission is to intercept drug shipments as close to their South American origins as possible, leveraging intelligence to target efforts effectively. The Coast Guard collaborates internationally, forming maritime counter-drug agreements and supporting initiatives to combat drug trafficking. Their commitment is evident in their successful disruption of numerous drug trafficking events, and also the attempts. Current methods used by U.S. agents to detect narco submarines primarily rely on towed sonar arrays, which consist of long cables with underwater microphones dragged behind a ship. These arrays are effective in listening for potential targets, but have limitations such as being suitable only for relatively deep waters and having a limited range for sound detection. In some instances, advanced underwater robots known as bluefins are employed to listen for targets, although they too have their own set of limitations. The U.S. Coast Guard plays a pivotal role in preventing dangerous drugs from reaching U.S. shores. As part of the Department of Homeland Security, they actively combat transnational organized crime networks engaged in drug trafficking. Their strategy is to intercept drug shipments as close to their South American origins as possible, utilizing intelligence to focus their efforts. They collaborate internationally, forming maritime counter-drugs agreements and supporting initiatives to combat drug trafficking. The U.S. Coast Guard's commitment is evident in its track record of disrupting drug trafficking attempts. In 2014 alone, they thwarted 164 drug attempts, seizing 93 vessels and confiscating substantial quantities of narcotics. Their operations showcase the critical role played by the U.S. Coast Guard in preserving maritime safety and security. While the fight against narco submarines continues, the commitment to preserving the safety of communities and disrupting drug trafficking organizations remains paramount, reflecting the unwavering determination to maintain the integrity of our oceans and the well-being of society.